Hello and welcome, all you Stadia players out there, for tuning in to a very special episode 17 of the Sounds of Stadia podcast. I'm joined this week by my usual two troublemakers, Tom and Richie. Welcome, gentlemen.
How are you doing?
Hello, hello. And also making his very first appearance on the show, and hopefully not his last, we have Mr. StadiaSource himself, Mr. Dan Wheeler.
How you doing, guys?
Welcome. So Dan's joined us on this week's show to make it very detailed, being the man of much news himself. But thankfully, you have joined us on quite a busy week.
I have, yeah.
Very, very busy. But I think a lot of our listeners out there, before we jump into all the topical news, I think us, me, Tom, and Richie ourselves would probably like to know a little bit about yourself, your background, and the website. Because obviously you are the number one source for all Stadia news. Which I think that's the slogan, if I've got it right.
That's the slogan I agree with.
So pretty much, I think, between the few, to start me off with, how did this come about? Why did you go think, you know what, I'm going to do this, I'm going to take all the Stadia news and just start a website?
Well,
where does that come from?
I mean, since pretty much my secondary school days, I've been into making websites, and I've always tinkered with just making little projects. And for quite a while, I also ran a Xbox-related website.
Okay.
But I kind of joined late to the party. I was kind of halfway through to the end of the lifespan of the Xbox 360. And I never could quite capture that audience with being so far behind. I was always playing catch up, and I'd kind of lost interest in games a little bit. I'd kind of started to just focus more on making websites and less on actually gaming and caring what was going on in the gaming world. And I saw something about Stadia, and I thought, you know what, I'll check it out just to see what's going on. And I watched the presentation, and I remember just being blown away. I thought, oh my God. And I was first time in a long time, I was actually really excited to play games. And I thought, because this is an untapped market as well, because it's fairly new, obviously I can start a website and be at the forefront of all of the goings on in Stadia and bring all the news to people. And I was just excited to see how it was changing other people's perceptions as well of what the gaming industry is potentially going to become in the future. So
yeah, I think that reflects us quite well as well. Where we're quite tech enthusiasts. We're all avid gamers, and it was that opportunity where we just thought we're all into this thing. We all put our money down on the Founders Edition after like yourself, you saw the GDC conference and how they went really in depth about the power of cloud gaming and streaming and such. So yeah, I've just sent a message out to the other two guys and said, what are your thoughts on this? Have you watched any of it? And much like yourself, we just thought, you know what, we're all on the same starting line here. There is no community that even exists at this point, so why not? And we started out as a hobby, and here we are, episode 17 with yourself, and all things are going great. I think for us, I think you passed was it 1,000 followers across all platforms in the week?
Yeah.
So again, milestones are being hit consistently. Even ourselves, actually, as of last night, we finally ticked over the 100 players per week mark.
Congratulations!
So there's 100 people. Thank you. So yeah, there's 100 random strangers out there we've never met apparently listening to us.
I love looking at the analytics and seeing people in like Manhattan, or I think we've got like a couple of people in Frankfurt and all sorts of places.
It is crazy. Yeah,
smallest, craziest places of the world that we're probably never going to visit, never going to see these people, but they enjoy the sounds of our voice and the news stories we have to tell. It appears.
I think some parts of it as well are, it's right place and right time. But for the most part as well, it's actually like the stuff that you're posting out there is just in such a clear and concise way, which is exactly what it needs to be as well. It's not just like being in the right place, but also providing the right content. And I think you hit the nail on the head. So it's fantastic to see.
Thank you.
And it's not just yourself, is it? You have got a smaller team. I presume they're friends. You've not got anyone working on a salary under you yet.
No, I mean it's all voluntary work. One of them is actually one of my. I've known him for about 10 years probably now. The others actually I don't know at all, but I've just become friends with them like through playing Stadia. I mean when I've been playing a lot of Destiny 2 lately, I used to play the heck out of that game on Xbox, but I've jumped back into it and I've made so many new friends from all over the world, Canada, America, just from playing Stadia. So
yeah, I mean, even you said you were on Stadia Talk this week talking to, I think Eddie's in Canada, isn't he?
Yeah,
that's his location.
Yeah, Stadia Talk is US, and Stadia Player One is Eddie.
Yeah, which is crazy and it is such a such a small community at this point. And everyone seems so helpful. When you look at the Reddit threads and the chat groups across Facebook and all the other social feeds, I think you just see people helping out with questions and little niggles people are having, or loopholes to try workarounds. And yeah, I think collectively, because it's such a small community at this moment, it's a great chance to kind of grow and make friends, like you said, which is what it should be about. It's what gaming should be about at its core. It's about networking with other people who have a similar interest. And at the end of the day, you're not going to go out and kill aliens in real life, so why not do it digitally across the internet, eh?
And eventually, who knows, we might even evolve to the point that we have a Stadia cinematic universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's there.
We're getting there.
I think one of the biggest things about the Stadia community at the moment is, like you said, we're all quite close-knit. I think probably 99% of the Stadia content creators, you know what I mean, we all know one another, we all talk, we all collaborate, you know what I mean, we have Discord groups together, and we can just bounce off one another, and you've always got a place to get the kind of content that you're after. So if you're wanting just the latest news, you can come to me. If you're wanting a bit of comedy, then you can go to Gloria Stadia, for example. If you want something a bit more thought-provoking from like a business point of view, you can go to Chase on Stadia Talk.
Yeah.
So it's brilliant to have those different options. Yeah.
Which is great, and it's only going to get better, I think, as we all stick to it. I think as Google come out and talk a bit more to their audience, and this really does grow and develop into a mass multimedia kind of thing, which I'm sure is their goal of putting enough money into it now. It seems their end dream.
Yeah.
It's only going to get better, and I think I think everyone out there from Stadia Talk all the way through are doing fantastic work. And like I said, most of us are doing it as a hobby.
Yeah, I think it's quite nice this community's form, especially when some of the bigger people in the gaming industry, the IGNs and stuff, seem mixed on Stadia at best, negative at worst. So it's nice to see, like, actually, well, if you're not interested, we are, so we'll take on the mantle.
Yeah. And that's the great thing, the power of the internet and social media has, is you can reach such a wide audience with such a small basic startup, I think. So something as simple as setting up a website with news stories, or setting up a podcast where it's just three friends talking shit about stuff they're passionate about, and you can put it out there to the masses. And like we said there, the reach is huge. So for you and the website, Dan, what's your long-term goal? What does StadiaSource look like in a year or so, detached from launch?
So aside from being a website that tries to bring the latest news, I also want to provide tools for people, particularly more further down the line, so that people can maximize their experience when it comes to Stadia. So, for example, if Stadia put out like API access to their data, is there any way that I can take that data and provide tools that maybe Stadia doesn't on the website? And also to become, like I've added, for example, the ability to add friends on the website.
Yeah, I checked that out a bit this week. It's the integration you've already got at such an early stage is fantastic. Yeah. You can tell you've got a passion for web designing, because the way it links into your Google account, Stadia, it's so much so detailed already at such an early stage. And I think if you're committed to that, the goal's fantastic.
I just want it to kind of be more of like a social place for people to hook up with gamers that they might not have played with before.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've got a feature that looks at all the games that you own and suggests other gamers that have got like the similar games to you.
Yeah, brilliant. it's I checked that out as well, and you get your full list.
Chris was actually recommended to me.
Yeah, which is it's that, so it works. The system works. Yeah. It appears.
Yeah, so just to provide more like it's almost like I've been described as a bit of a Facebook for Stadia, but
which is in the world of social media, it needs to be.
Yeah.
So it's great to look at, and I think when you look at the audience out there, these are some of the features that you'd like to think would actually be integrated into the actual Stadia interface on the system. But alas, you're picking up the baton there and kind of running with it. So yeah, credit where credit's due. So aside from the website, then obviously we're all gamers at heart. What does your gaming history look like? Where did you start off? What was the first controller you picked up?
So it'll be a Sega Mega Drive, Sonic the Hedgehog, 1991.
Classic.
I'm a massive Sonic fan.
Hey.
Have you had a chance to play Sonic Mania? The latest.
I played the hell out of that. I've completed it. Every achievement. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I love that game as well. I went for the Crazy Collector's Edition that came with the Mega Drive. and Sonic was stood on top of it, and it comes with a Sega cartridge, and what would have been the chip part of the cartridge slides out, and you get a gold ring inside it.
You can actually see it just behind his mic.
Just at the top, and it has a little switch, and when you slide it, it makes a Sega sound effect and everything. So
I'm not quite that wealthy, I think.
Immediate throwback. Oh, I'm not either. I just saw it and scraped together what I could because it was a needs be collectible.
Yeah, I was jealous when you told me you ordered that.
Yeah. So where did you go from the Mega Drive then? What was your next leap forward?
PlayStation 1, the likes of Resident Evil 1. I probably shouldn't have played it at the age that I was at, but Crash Bandicoot. Yeah, all the classics.
All the classics, yeah. Similar to Resident Evil, I get nightmares from playing Dino Crisis at far too young of an age. Definitely, I don't even know how I got my hands on it. It's one of them probably bad parenting techniques that I ended up with.
I think at the time games were just seen as toys, so it's a toy, so give it to your kid.
Yeah, dinosaurs, zombies. What harm is it going to possibly do?
Keep us quiet.
Scarred for life. Yeah. So what are you currently playing then? Aside is Stadia go to #1 place at the moment?
I mean, yeah, I haven't pretty much touched my Xbox since Stadia came out. That's not out of favoritism. It's just I find myself playing like Destiny 2 a lot, which, like I said, I used to play on the Xbox quite a lot, but now I can play it on Stadia. Borderlands 3. A little bit annoyed because there is no cross-save ability. I actually got quite far on the Xbox version, and then my father says, because he's got Stadia as well on my recommendation, he's like, I've picked up Borderlands 3, will you jump in with me? I says, but I'm going to have to start again from like level 1, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the kind of bad side to gamification, isn't it? When you've got level systems, is you commit so many hours of your life to reaching a certain threshold, and then to go back and start at square one is it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. We've all been there.
He keeps telling me what to do, like what I need to do at certain parts of the game. I'm like, Dad, I've completed this game about 4 times. Just because you're a higher level than me, because you've been bothered to play.
I am looking for the day when like cross-save and cross-play is really integrated. To be honest, if things like Destiny you see on like the Facebook groups, like people looking to get raids together. Yeah. So I think at the moment with Stadia's user base, that sort of stuff can be a bit of a problem.
I think it's going to happen. It's just a case of time, because if we look at next generation kicking off at the end of this year, and Stadia is very much a part of that. When these massive open world kind of non-stop repeat games keep going, like the likes of Destiny, when Stadia does hopefully finally get its hand on the likes of Fortnite and such, and Apex Legends, people who've been playing those games for the last year or 2 years and have all their microtransaction amount and save games and levels and weapons and skins and all that, they're not going to make the jump over to other platforms or next gen if all their gear doesn't go with it. And I think that kind of does really push the board out with cross-save, cross-play and stuff, because there's no way around it.
Fortnite for me could be a big get, because that was one that kind of broke Sony and the cross-play stuff. So if they get on Stadia, that might be the catalyst for it.
Well, if you think people playing Fortnite on the mobile at the moment, and I know it works seamlessly, but it's not the same as having a controller in your hand. We all know that. We've all played mobile games. So yeah, that's definitely the way I think it's going. How about yourself, Dan? Any insight into it?
I think because people play Fortnite at the moment, obviously with the mobile, they've got the on-screen controls. But if you could have the Stadia, like the Claw, for example, and play Fortnite on the go, especially, I mean, if you're doing like long distance travel or something, and you can just have the kids in the back of the car, Stadia, Fortnite, that shuts them up for the entire journey. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, it's gone are the days where we all had to sit in the back of the car with a Game Boy with no backlit screen. It's they've got the world is like the world is their oyster at this point. They have it so lucky they don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Google
but thanks
will
for
get
that.
a bundle as well.
Yeah,
with
thanks
a
for
Fortnite
that,
Stadia bundle.
Yeah, we thought we'd best get a little bit of insight into the man behind the website as well.
That's fine.
But it's good to know that, I think, as with most people, you followed the same trajectory as pretty much all of us have as well. So to get started then, because it's going to be a bumper-filled episode, as I mentioned, there was a ton of news dropped this week, which you can read all about over at StadiaSource.com if you want to check out all those well-detailed articles. But to start off with, Tom, if you could do the rundown.
Absolutely, and of course, because as you said, it is a big news week. We have got a lot to talk about, so we really are this week going for a super sexy special Stadia Stories segment, aka, gents,
the news. I still didn't get there. We also didn't give you a heads up about that, Dan. We all attempt to say news at the same time, and we failed for 17 episodes today.
You'll get it one day.
I think we managed once when Tom wasn't here.
Yeah,
so it's just two of us.
Go figure.
But yes, so to start us off with, I think the biggest piece of news is we heard from Google. Finally, after the long deadly silence that was the festive season, we finally got a community blog roundup, which went live earlier this week, which gave us a really good in-depth view of kind of some of the key Stadia stories we'd hoped were going to drop to kind of kickstart 2020. I think the biggest piece to come out of it was apparently they are tracking, whatever tracking means, more than 120 games are going to come to Stadia in 2020, which I think to us three is great news.
I think one thing I've seen from this is the announcement of that they're tracking more than 120 games in this year alone. The tone in the community alone has just like it's increased again. We've got a good vibe going on once again, because the silence, as we all know, sort of like started to get the naysayers popping their heads up and starting talking about things once again. But this has finally like sort of like hushed that, essentially. Yeah. And now we're back to where we started prior to the release. Now we've got some sort of excitement around the product again, which is excellent. Brilliant.
Yeah, we covered it last week. It was just having a roadmap, that vocal roadmap to say, even just basic maths, you've got tracking 120 games. And when they say tracking, I really hope it means they're just not following the developer on Twitter or something like that. I hope it means
to me,
tracking in a
means
detailed
they're trying to get them over the deals over the line to get them
Yeah, and 120 broken down over the year could average out at 10 games a month.
Yep.
And we're already at the end of January nearly. So that's given them essentially 11 months to get 120 games out on Stadia. So my presumption there is there's stuff that's locked and loaded, ready to go. It really, really does.
Yeah.
But more exciting, I think, out of the 120 games, which I'm sure we could speculate on. We could talk forever about what we think is coming.
Such a big number, it could be anything.
It could be anything. It could be Solitaire, Chess Master, anything like that.
119 versions of Solitaire.
Yeah, it could be every variation of The Sims that's ever been out, for all we know. But hopefully it's a little bit more exciting than those games. Although I wouldn't be surprised if Solitaire and Chess came to it eventually. They're on everything else. I think for me the biggest part was they said that they're targeting more than 10 games in the first half of this year alone that are going to be timed exclusives to Stadia, which I did see a lot of the competitions websites kick off about a little bit, saying that Google were throwing their money about just to get time exclusives.
Because Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo have never done that.
They've never done that, no. They've never done that with Marvel Ultimate Alliance, Lock the Switch, Spider-Man, and Tomb Raider on Xbox. A few that
Death
come to mind.
Stranding's coming to PC.
Yep.
That's a timed exclusive.
Yeah,
we've got Horizon Zero Dawn's coming to PC now as well, isn't
rumored,
it?
Yeah, rumored.
Yeah, I heard that.
So for those 10 specific games that are going to be exclusives, what are we expecting? I saw some people in the community mention AAA games and they start throwing around some crazy stories, but personally I don't think they're going to be AAA. I think they're going to very much be indie developers they can go out to, flash a bit of the cash and say, can we get a couple a month out of you? And I think as long as you get that balance of basically paying their wages and safeguarding the company's future going into probably next year, I think a lot of them would snap Google's hand off at that chance.
I could see it being some like AAAs, things like a Rage 2, where it just didn't do very well at the time. Doesn't mean it's a bad game. A lot of companies might be looking at Stadia with a smaller install base, a smaller catalogue there, to go, okay, this is something that we like, we know it's a good game, it's not got in the hands of people, let's put it where it's less crowded and see how it does.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the storefront and what we've spoke about in previous episodes around Nintendo, when they first launched, independent developers flocked to them because they were seeing tenfold sales of the same game on Nintendo because their storefront was so less crowded. People were seeing it, and it's perfect as a handheld, and kind of Stadia kind of ticks all those boxes where it can be a handheld, but at the same time, the storefront's so threadbare at the moment. If you get on there and you're the only new game to come out this week, you've got essentially the entire player base who's going to see it on their app. If it's at the right price, then
that's exactly what I was thinking with regards to that as well. It's very much we're hungry for the games right now. Like we're really hungry to get something new on Stadia too. So it almost from a marketing perspective seems like a great idea for sales. Like get it timed exclusive. Everyone on Stadia is probably going to chomp on the bit for it and then push it out everywhere else.
Yeah, and again, I've been a big advocate of getting older games on, which I do presume some of them 120 games coming to Stadia this year are going to be older games that we've probably played before, but introduce them to a new kind of community who are hungry for games. 1 and 2. Yeah, and there's news on that coming up as well. Dan, have you got any thoughts on what you'd like to see coming? Have you seen any little indie games kicking around that you might think will drop into this category?
I think I'm on the same wavelength as most other people. We want to see like the Call of Duties and the Fortnites. I mean, personally, I don't play Fortnite, but I can see the benefit of it coming to Stadia. I think the way that they've worded more than 120 games and more than 10 of which are going to be exclusives to the platform, I think that's very cleverly worded because it's 120 games. That leaves a lot of margin for games that could potentially come, like you said, everywhere down from like chess up to Call of Duty and FIFA. And it's going to get people talking, and people are going to have their own predictions as to what they want to see. On the flip side, though, you've also got to be careful because people are then going to start making those assumptions that, one of those 120 games is going to be for Fortnite or Call of Duty, and yet they've not actually said anything. And we as gamers tend to project what we want to see too much, and then when it doesn't arrive, we get upset over something that was never even mentioned in the first place.
Yeah, that's very true. Casting such a broad net.
It's not just gamers; it's any fandom. Star Wars is terrible for us.
I think we're already seeing some of that in the community as well, because obviously with Uplay Plus eventually coming to Stadia as well, some people have already started being a little bit vocal, saying, "Oh, does that just mean Uplay Plus?" and so on. But it probably isn't. I wouldn't expect it to be. I think it's going to be a bigger scope than that, really.
I think our writer, Duncan, sorry to interrupt you there. Our writer, Duncan, actually wrote an article as to why he thinks that those 120 games is not going to include the full Uplay lineup. I think some of those games they go back so far in date, and also control method as well. You've got to look at it from a business lens, and that is how much are you willing to invest in older games. I know you mentioned not long ago you'd like to see some older games coming. How much do you invest in older games? Are they going to make the same kind of sales, given that they're X amount of years old on Stadia? But then again, I'm a Libra, and one of the traits of a Libra is to be quite balanced. And I always tend to look at things from both sides. And you've also got to think as well, back to what you just said about the storefront being so bleak at the moment. And even if you do get, you know what I mean, they could put the original Resident Evil 1 on, for example, as we mentioned earlier, and people would still buy it just because they want to play something different on Stadia. So
yeah, I certainly would.
Roundabouts, I guess. Yeah, I would too.
If they're priced well.
Yeah. That's what it comes down to, doesn't it? It comes down to the pricing. I must admit at the moment, being slightly cynical, I've said on the podcast before that there's a few titles that have come out that have been on sale that I've sort of steered away from purchasing, because arguably you look at the price that is supposed to be on sale, and compared to other platforms, it's not competitive enough. So with an older title in particular, it's got to have that right price point, and then people will jump at it. Otherwise, it'll just sit there and it'll just take up, well, it won't take up our space. It's not going to take up our space, is it?
That's true. Nope. I think for me, when it comes to planning older games specifically, there's certain ones that feel like a niche market where, as gaming's evolved and we've hit that kind of AAA standard of quality now, we actually have the ability to go back into games that are now coming up 10 years old. Recently, I played Arkham Asylum again, and that's a game that's over a decade old. And because I don't know whether I had a Batman itch or I'd watched some DC-related TV shows, there's just something kind of led me to go back to it. And I think certain franchises lend themselves to that. You mentioned Star Wars there, Richie, about the community, but Battlefront 2 was back up in one of the top sellers over Christmas, obviously down to Rise of the Skywalker. It got another review.
I think it was £5 on Steam.
Yeah. Mandalorian was obviously out, so once that kind of general consensus is there, it can work very, very well for certain games, but it does need to be the right IP. You're right there, Dan. Old games are old at the end of the day, but I think we've seen a resurgence in certain IP. I mean, The Witcher 3, I've seen loads of people, that I think on Steam especially, that's seen more players jump on now than it did originally.
Toss a coin to your Witcher.
Exactly, yeah. Toss a coin to your podcast and your StadiaSource website. Please do. So yeah, little bits of news off the back of that. Some other smaller details. They said they were going to do support for 4K gaming on the web, which I presume just means those of us who actually have a 4K laptop. Anyone?
Or 4K monitor, Tom.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Just drop that one in there.
I'm not jealous at all.
I know. It's something that I'd like to see. I'm not necessarily as we've discussed previously. It's not something that I'm completely over the moon on yet. 4K. Like I'm quite happy still with HD 1080p. To be honest with you, nothing's really blown my mind with it yet.
I got the point years ago where I stopped really caring about the graphics of games because we got to a point where they're good.
Are we getting old?
Yeah.
I mean, I just said that about Arkham Asylum. I didn't play any of that game and thought, oh, this looked rough because it had that particular art style. We've said before as well, Borderlands 3 and Borderlands 2 and 1 aged so well because of the art style. And that's why a lot of indie games with the pixelated graphics hold up so well. You could play Sonic today, and it wouldn't feel any different than Sonic Mania did. That came out not last year, the year before now, because it's the art style. It's timeless. Yeah,
I think Minecraft played a large part in that as well. One of the biggest games of the world so far.
Yeah, Minecraft on Stadia. There's another one, isn't it? I didn't think about.
Else.
I could see it happening.
Right,
yeah.
predictions: Minecraft, Skyrim.
Well, Microsoft are playing well with others at the moment, so why not? Again, I think they're looking at this next generation very much as a way to just get their games out on as many places as possible, and it's turning into almost more of a service than it is a platform. And I think realistically, once everyone doubles down on the cloud gaming side of things, and there's no longer consoles restricting you to where you play your games, that's the future. And I think eventually they are all going to cross over each other into this kind of utopian world where we all get along. All our franchise and IPs don't clash with each other, and we can all just play games to our heart's content.
I think Microsoft are definitely gearing themselves up for a world without having the box in your living room.
It would appear. But
and I think Sony are now pivoting to that.
Yeah, Stadia's already there, though. Yeah. Another feature was wireless gameplay on the web through the Stadia controller, which I think...
Yes.
I don't know about you guys, but I thought it was going to be a day one thing until the details emerged that actually
it was in the list right before it launched of the things they wrote step back on.
Which we know because of the exclusivity and the way they're obviously monitoring and rolling these features out slowly. I think the wired controller was a necessity while they tested latency and probably people using them out in the wild. But yeah, it will be nice to actually sit on my laptop without having to have that really short white cable having me attached and hooked up to it. And then the kind of final point, which we knew was coming, was further assistant functionality while playing on the web as well, which, yeah, they added the storefront. We knew about that. Dan, from your web developer background, any idea what other functionality they could be talking about coming in the near future?
The way that's worded makes it think that they're just going to add the Google Assistant to the Chrome browser. Yeah, so it's literally going to be able to tell the Chrome browser, hey, okay, Google, start Borderlands 3. But obviously we know what's coming further down the line in terms of being able to ask Google for help on certain parts of the game. I think we're a little way away from that at the moment.
Yeah.
So I just think it's worded a bit.
Yeah, I know they've got a big desire to kind of integrate that into everything they sell, all their products, rightly so. It's probably one of the best AI search engines on the go in comparison to some of the other developers. Bixby, I'm talking about you on your Samsungs. But yeah, the reality is it's no wonder they want their integration. I don't know how much it really has a bearing on the games, but I think as we roll closer to a future where the YouTube integration is going to be a bigger part of it, and we can jump into tutorial videos for help with games and sharing it with people, I can see it becoming more of a relevant thing as time goes by. But at the moment, I personally don't.
It'd be nice almost for streaming things if you could just play any game, just go, okay, Google, start streaming.
Stop saying this.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry.
Everyone's home speakers kick off, and we get comments saying stop saying it. So don't worry, listeners, I've got your back. I looked at Tom.
My apologies.
I think I made not eye contact. I saw Tom on the webcam there, and I was like, yeah.
Yeah, I've got my Google Home literally right next to my computer, and the second somebody says it, those lights just flick on, and I think, shit, here we go again.
It's like a sleeping child. You don't want to make any noise because it's going to wake up. So just
And as soon as you do, it becomes like a meerkat. Right?
yeah, and it spouts anything off.
Yeah, my point was it'd be nice if you could just like tell Google to just start streaming and it works.
Yeah, and we'll get there. But I think from my point of view, it was fantastic just to hear a bit from the community, and I think it was Grace who was back with the story. And hopefully now 2020's kicked off. They've clearly came back from their Christmas holidays. We should be getting regular updates with a few more details. One of which I'd imagine, it's what we're recording this on the 19th of January, should be our February free games.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to hazard a guess as to what they'd like to see or what the suspicions may be?
Like I said before, I think with it rolling over now, coming to the point that a lot of the Founders Pro subscriptions are nearing the end of that initial three-month period. My call would be, I think Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Personally.
Really?
Yes.
I'd like that.
Interesting.
That's on my list of games I want to
Odyssey.
go back and try again because it didn't click with me the first time around.
And
I mean,
that's why I think it's going to be.
It's a very critical month, this one.
Plus, a news story we are going to talk about in a little while. Perhaps the newest Assassin's Creed news may be on the horizon for that, so it might be a good way to generate some publicity around that for Ubisoft as well.
I'd like something to come. I mentioned this I think last week. Something that isn't currently on the store.
Yeah, that'd be a nice turn.
For me, the one I'm thinking is Doom 2016.
Okay.
They've been very silent on that, so surely it's going to come out before the Eternal.
Yeah,
It makes sense. If you bring out Eternal and then the original one, or 2016, sorry, after the fact, you're flipping your audience the wrong way there.
If you're giving Doom 2016 as a free game in February, in the lead up to Doom Eternal release in March, it's a nice way to get people into the franchise and go, oh, this was really cool.
Yeah, very much. I think you've both got two valid points on two very good games there.
So
Dan,
basically, it's going to be Tomb Raider.
what insight are you throwing into the mix?
Right. I want you all to get your tinfoil hats on for this one.
Will do.
Now, if you Google Stadia February games, at the top, in one of those special things that like where Google highlights certain things, it actually says Darksiders Genesis and Trials Rising, and they are the only two games that appear at the top. Now, I'm not saying that's definitely what they're going to be, especially because if you change February to January, for example,
It says the same thing.
well, no, it says something different, which aren't actually the games that we got.
Yeah.
in
Okay.
January, if I can
Yeah, you've
start.
got Trials Rising, Ghost Recon, Elder Scrolls Online,
I'll
Division
take all
2.
them.
Yeah, so that's the only thing that makes me think that that's not
Yeah.
true.
Depends how their algorithm's ticking over there.
It would be
Yeah.
huge. It would be huge if it was the two of them, but I feel like Genesis is very fresh. Like, it's
Yeah.
very fresh.
I can see Trials being one of the free games at some point.
Yeah.
Does Genesis have any sort of microtransaction stuff in there?
Mm-mm. Nope.
Oh,
Not as far as I'm aware. I didn't see that when I tried it out.
because that could have been a way to get the player base in and make the money not on the game sale but on the in-game purchases.
Yeah.
Trials has loot boxes, I think, but I'm not sure how much. they're
It's
paying.
more cosmetic, I
Yeah.
believe. It's that goal. Like I played the last Trials game beforehand, and it was very much. There's nothing that can really give you microtransactional wise to actually get you
No.
to the end of the level any better. So I think cosmetics would be the only.
I'm not sure Trials is a good choice because I think that's a game either you're into and you've probably already bought it, or you're not into and you're probably not going to.
It's probably one of those throwaway games that you would get where you would play it, you would probably have a little bit of fun
Yeah.
with it, but you wouldn't commit like
Yeah.
days on end to it like you would other big titles. So you've used the Google algorithm to hopefully break that news there. Then you heard it here first if it's true. From
Could be
the
Wolfenstein, though.
himself. It could be.
Could be.
It's a cheaper game. I haven't heard many people in like the communities talk about it.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with. They're gonna follow their similar trait they have done. The third Tomb Raider game. Just get the trilogy in there. It's gonna be the third Tomb Raider game. And I think that is it Keen or something.
Yeah.
I think it's a smaller indie one because I don't think that's had any attention whatsoever. So I think that's the throwaway title that people jump into and go, it's either for them or it's not. And I think, just round it out. They've clearly got to deal with Square Enix some point down the line. get a Google Stadia, get Pro, and you've hopefully by now got a full trilogy of amazing games on your hands.
I wonder if we could get a refund on Tomb Raider then, because I haven't actually played the third one, but I did buy it.
Yeah, likewise.
Same.
Well, they seem to be quite good with their refunds as long as you hit those little caveat rules.
It's interesting that I feel like I'd be a little bit disappointed if it was the third Tomb Raider, whereas if it was Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which I have put countless hours into since Stadia's come out, that I actually wouldn't be that bothered, and I don't know why. I don't know why it doesn't bother me as much, because I haven't played the third Tomb Raider at all yet.
I think it's because we've already had 2 Tomb Raiders in about 3-4 months that Stadia's been
oversaturation. Yeah,
it is.
Now, usually I'd say you can't get too much Lara Croft, but maybe in this case it is a bit oversaturated.
I'd prefer Trials over Tomb Raider, despite what I said, because
Really?
they're getting variety. They're getting its variety.
Yeah.
Track
Not just for me.
Make your mind up, Richie. Make your mind up.
I think my father-in-law, he only plays Tomb Raider, and I'm talking about like Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3 on the PlayStation 1. He still has a PS2 in his living room.
They don't control well at all.
No, but he absolutely loves them. And then I was playing the first Tomb Raider on Stadia here, and he was like, "What's that?" I says, "Tomb Raider." He goes, "Oh, can I play?" So he played it, and now he's absolutely in love with it. He's just completed the first one. So he's gone from a massive step from playing Tomb Raider 1 to the current gen Tomb Raiders, and he's actually completed it before I have, and he started on the second one. So if that third one does come as a free game, he's going to be absolutely loving February.
And I think that's my train of thought. Because they know the library's so thin. Some people, I'm very similar. I finished the first Tomb Raider game as well. I'm just about to start the second one, because it is a chapter story-driven game that has a definitive end. I think it is timed quite well for those people who maybe only have time for one game per month. It is almost like the perfect calendar step-by-step jumps to do. And your dad's clearly a prime example of that.
I think the one thing we need to remember is I think my Pro subscription renews on the 20th of February, so I'm guessing most people's is going to be around the same. So I think it might not be February's a big drop. It might be March's to get you back in. Because I will get February's. If I cancelled my subscription now, I'd still get February's.
That's true.
For most of the month.
Well, I guess we'll find out soon. It's going to have to surely be this week's update that drops it, because then the tick 2 fire into the following, next month. But speaking of things ticking over into the next month, that brings on our next story. Marvel's Avengers delayed until September as well. So not even a short delay. How do we all feel about that, you three?
I think my opinion on this is if they're delaying a game, it's for a good reason these days. I'm sort of beyond the scope now of getting disappointed by delays with games, because I think a bad game, once it's released, it's gonna be bad. But if you take the time with it, you delay, you upset a few people, but it'll be much better down the line. It's always worth doing it. It's always worth putting it off.
What's the Japanese quote, Richie? Who is it? You're the one who always remembers his name. I want to say it's Miyamoto, but I don't think it is.
It's Miyamoto. I can't remember the quote off the top of my head, but it's basically what Tom summed up. It's a bad game will always be bad, but a delayed game has potential to be good.
Yeah,
or something along those lines. It's just part of Nintendo's philosophy. Is like they don't release bad games. They wait till they're ready.
That quote from Shigeru Miyamoto is: "A delayed game is eventually good, but a rushed game is forever bad."
There you go. Wise words from the Land of the Rising Sun.
From basically the guy who reinvigorated the entire industry. He
knows a little bit about what he's talking about, yeah. But in terms of the Avengers delay, how, more importantly, does this really impact Stadia as well? Because that was, I think, one of the, alongside Doom, that was probably the next flagpole big title for early this year. I know that was one that I was really, really interested in. And now it's kind of September's not even a small pushback though. So,
I actually think for me, I'm probably going to be more interested in it now being later in the year, because the start of this year, it's early spring, was looking very crowded for games across the board, not just Stadia. So it might actually do better in September.
It might be a timing issue as well. Like they might have gone back to think about it and just looked at the scope of when titles are due to be released and sort of tried to strategically plan around it.
And then Cyberpunk also.
And then Cyberpunk got delayed.
Well, don't ruin our next story.
Sorry.
Because no one who listens to this has possibly seen any news around this throughout the week already. There's no websites out there that highlight this to them, is there, Dan? But yeah,
Depends on what these 20 games are, really. Because if they come out with a Kinect going, okay, he's what the games for the first 6 months.
Yeah.
So, and there's some good stuff in there. I think people will be okay with my Avengers being delayed.
Yeah. I mean, I think it could work out quite good from a marketing strategy from them, because by the time the game comes out now, we'll have actually had another Marvel or 2 Marvel movies come out throughout the course of the year, whereas there's been quite a quiet dip since Endgame finished, I think, last summer. It has felt like a lull in. I personally don't feel like I'll be in the cinema half as much as I used to, because those flagpole movies that I went to see systematically every 3 or 4 months have not longer been there. But yeah, I think a few games coming out. In the UK especially, we'll have Disney Plus finally come the end of March. So no doubt the national consensus will be Disney and Marvel is now at the forefront of everyone's minds once again. Plus, next gen is launching obviously at the end of this year with PS5 and Xbox coming out. Do we think this allows them to tweak it for Stadia as well? We're always going to get the best graphic fidelity and power that they can possibly output. So delay it till September just means we're going to get a better looking game as well at the end of it.
Can I butt in with something here?
Yeah.
And I want your guys' opinions here, right? my partner's surname is actually Disney.
Right? Oh wow.
Okay.
So if we get married, should I become Dan Disney?
Oh.
Heir to the Disney throne.
That's a tough.
You could double barrel it if you want to, so you can use both.
I've got no attachments to my current surname, so.
I
just wanted your guys' opinions. That's all. Totally.
Good branding for you.
I'm quite a believer in keeping my own name, but that would push me, I think, a little bit. Just the possibilities are endless, especially when it comes to copyright infringement, because it's your name.
Yeah.
But surely you've got more threshold in terms of where you post stuff, what you do.
Maybe I'll get free entry to Disneyland.
Yeah.
It just don't start wearing mouses and podcasts.
Yeah. So by default, are you then a Disney fan as well, Dan?
Yeah, I would say I am. Yeah, I'm not every film, but
is she a massive Disney fan?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say it would probably go either. She'd probably loathe them entirely because it ruined her existence, or just buy into the model, buy into it.
She absolutely loves it.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that is a tough one to think about. That certainly.
Yeah. But back on track, I think, like someone said a minute ago, this first part of 2020 has been quite crowded with games. I know we've had like the likes of the Resident Evil 3 remake, Final Fantasy remake, Cyberpunk, Marvels. You're not going to find the time to play all these games. So
yeah,
the fact that they're pushing them back a bit more can only mean you get more time to play the other games, I think. So
that's true. Yeah, it always helps with a back catalogue delay when you've got that bit of space to breathe.
And they'll be polished when they come out as well, like you said.
Which we want. And I think Avengers in particular got a bit of a backlash on the first reveal about the character models not quite looking up to scratch from what people would have perceived them to look like.
I actually watched the trailer for that, and I wasn't that thrilled purely because they just didn't look like the characters that I'd gotten used to in the film. Yeah. So I kind of had a little interest in that game, and then just before it got delayed, I watched it again. I was like, actually, yeah, this could be quite good. So I'm a bit.
I think there's that kind of expecting to look a certain way. They've obviously made it a point of we're gonna actually make significant changes to separate ourselves. It's just an adjustment, I think.
I think it's one of them.
If the game's good in a year's time, no one will care.
A lot of the actors have quit the series, the franchise anyway. Like, you know what I mean? Robert Downey Jr.
moved on,
So we've got to get used to that change eventually.
Yeah, it was almost like this weird uncanny valley moment where it was like budget Robert Downey Jr. and it's just, it was, you look at it and you can sort of, your mind's playing tricks on you where you're looking at the model and you're going, I know who you're meant to be, but I'm not entirely convinced.
It might be different from those who've like really into the comics because they've already had to make that adjustment once, where I've only ever been into the film. So for me, Robert Downey Jr. is Tony Stark. That's how I envision Tony Stark.
Yeah, there's certainly some adjustment to that's required. I think getting that new. I think the biggest problem from a gamer's perspective as well is 2 of the front actors is Troy Baker and Nolan North. So when I hear them, I literally hear their characters from other games now because they don't seem to be doing a different accent. So it is basically Nathan Drake's Iron Man, I think, Captain America's Joel from The Last of Us. It's a very odd combination to have as superheroes.
I love Troy and Nolan, but the video game industry needs some more voice actors.
Yeah, I've got a bit of an issue there
everything.
because I watch a lot of Troy Baker's stuff on YouTube as well, so I'm very much used to seeing him, like actually him, the person as well. So when I hear his voice in different games as well, again, I have that uncanny valley moment where I just think, oh, what the hell is going on in my head? Like something, it's just messing up.
I'm just going to hear the Destiny ghost. Nolan.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
Nathan Drake.
We've opened the hive.
So speaking of actors and getting more in the industry, voice actors who've transited across, we have Mr. Keanu Reeves, who moved across to Cyberpunk, which again, as Richie and Tom alluded to earlier in the show, has also been delayed to September. So it's going to be a busy month come autumn time.
Yeah, do you know what though? I've got 100% faith in CD Projekt Red as well though. So if they could delay it for a year if they needed to, Cyberpunk for me is a game that I'm literally foaming at the mouth to get. Like I just want it, but
were you a bit more soured on that delay than you were Avengers, I presume, Tom?
I'm not too fussed on the Avengers delay. Like that really doesn't bother me. But Cyberpunk, I want it to be good. I really, really, really want that title to be good. And I know it will be good because it's a CDPR game. So
what I like about CD Projekt Red is they've come out and explained the reasons for the delay. They went, game's not ready. We're going to make it ready. We want this to be the game of the generation at the end of the generation.
They made a very yellow statement.
Yeah.
Big yellow backdrop statement.
That's CD Projekt Red. They've always had that community focus. They want to make good games that gamers want to play. And they do genuinely listen. I think I remember buying The Witcher, and there's a little note in there thanking me for buying the game. It's little touches. Sometimes are very nice from them.
Yeah, I just worry about what the impact of these delays is going to be on Stadia. I know that they're not delayed specifically on Stadia, and it's certainly not Stadia's fault, but these were key games in their library, and people are going to use that as an excuse to say, well, what's the point in buying Stadia?
Yeah, it's really good ammunition, I think. We all saw how much Doom Eternal dropping out of a launch title probably impacted the not the Stadia community, but the gaming community as a whole. It was a really easy jab to throw with you've got no new games essentially, and I think it is a shame that they're being pushed back. The kind of shining light of that is, I guess, with the delay being pushed back to September, even though we didn't have set dates for Cyberpunk and Avengers on Stadia, this gives them a chance to bring everything day and date, so we get them in line with the rest of the platforms.
Yeah,
this is why I think I'm still convinced Doom 2016 will be a pro game, because I think that might have been bumped from Stadia because there's probably a deal in place where you'll get that one for free as your pro subscription at the same time Eternal drops.
Yeah,
and they've probably just moved the timeline on it.
Yeah, there's definitely some interesting stuff going on in the background, I think. But for me, similar to you, Tom, CD Projekt Red, it's in absolute safe hands as far as I'm concerned. And a delay, it's only going to allow them to detail that world a bit more. And the great thing with this as well, I suppose, for the two games, is it gives them another chance to get on the showcase in the summer, things like E3 and stuff, and Gamescom. And it gives them another window of opportunity to just really push the marketing. So we can see new trailers, we can see a bit more gameplay because they have had those extra few months to polish it off, which is only going to do anything to draw that hype level out again going into September. So delays aren't all bad.
Nope.
So aside from delays then, we've also got some news dropped this week around potential new games coming up, which again, by the looks of it, is going to come out in September. The Assassin's Creed Ragnarok rumored to be. IGN and a couple of other websites picked up some more articles around that, saying a few details have leaked as per usual. Have you guys seen any news on this?
Yeah, just to confirm, it is a working title. We still don't know whether it's actually called Ragnarok yet, but it might as well be at this point.
Yeah, it's a good name to attach at this time in the public mind, I think. So yeah, I think there's a few things dropped. There was the release date, the rumored it's going to be around the October time, which to be fair, in line with Odyssey, came out I think early October, and Origins the year before. Because in my mind, I always get them kind of leading into Christmas, and then I spend hours and hours playing it over the holiday season and such. But I think traditionally they've always leaked. I think Odyssey was it a keyring with a Spartan? There was like a Spartan helmet keyring I think leaked beforehand.
Yes,
which was
right.
what kind of
leaked. I think Ubisoft know what they're doing.
Yeah, a lot of game spoilers I always think are cleverly cleverly engineered to get out into the wild to kind of create hype and expectation for it. Pardon me. Some of the new rumored leaks, I think, what they've drilled out, which are quite intriguing. One of them was 4-player co-op drop-in, drop-out mode, similar to Ghost Recon.
Okay.
Which in Assassin's Creed game they've not done since, I want to say, Unity, which was in Paris. That had online where you could play with 4 fellow assassins and kind of go around, climb up Notre Dame and such, and take people out. But the fact that it may be drop in, drop out is quite intriguing. I think if you're in that massive open world hunting people down and you need some help, and I'm online as well, I can just drop into your game.
A bit like Borderlands, really.
Maybe that might also be a good opportunity as well for, depending on where Stadia is in its development cycle, to actually look at some of those features that we heard about pre-release as well, in terms of being able to join other people's games through whether it's the friends list, through watching people online, through YouTube integration and so on. That might be quite cool to actually include in something like this.
Yeah, I think it would be really good. Just for the fact that I've played Ubisoft games in the past, like Far Cry with my brother and such, and sometimes having that extra person to chat about the actual game you're playing with in the moment, it does add a different dynamic, and I think it'd be really interesting for Assassin's Creed to see how you'd kind of pair up, scout out a castle or a base or something, and kind of take out your target. So that'd be quite interesting. Another point was said to be introducing new RPG mechanics, which we've knew since Origins. They've introduced a much more detailed class system and skill trees. This one in particular said you're going to be able to change character class. So whether they're going to go full RPG and you're going to have like a warrior, a mage, or again, it's Ragnarok, so anything can happen.
They've been trying out for the last 2 games and people have liked it, so continue.
Yeah, focusing on that's fine. More weapons, upgrades. I think one of the things that I read, which I'm not too keen on, was durability of the weapons is going to play a role similar
from
to Zelda.
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. Now, when I was playing
that system,
when I was playing Breath of the Wild, that was just what pissed me off, because I'm one of those people who I kind of get a favorite weapon and I stick to it. It's usually a fancy ornate sword, but all the things like pikes and spears, I'm not overly fussed on.
I find durability systems discourage you from using your cool weapons.
Yes.
Because I'll save this when I need it, and then you complete the game and go, I didn't need it.
Totally agree with you on that one.
Portions and RPGs.
Yeah, and then you end up just collecting all the shit ones because you can waste them. So you've got like 20 bronze swords in your inventory just because you can chip away. So for me, I hope that's an optional thing. Which Ubisoft
if the items are repairable, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, but if you
Breath of the Wild, once they were gone, they were gone.
Yeah, if you get to a point and you just goes, oh, your sword snapped, sorry. That's not how steel works. It doesn't just stop working after a point. It just becomes a blunt object rather than a sharp one.
Yeah.
A few other things are said. Rather than adrenaline, which was a big point of Assassin's Creed, there's like berserker mode for using certain powers, rune powers in particular, potentially elemental types, which again, if I'm thinking back to God of War now, if it's going to tie in with all this kind of runic Norse mythology, could very well be up the street as well.
I think they need to stay a little bit away from that, though. Otherwise, it does fall. You're just copying God of War.
That's what I was worried about.
Kind of matches up as well.
Yeah.
But if I said to you, would you want a God of War, an open world God of War game?
I know, but they're 2 different franchises.
They are. But then again, Assassin's Creed wasn't an open world RPG as it is today still. So we'll see.
I've been a lover of Assassin's Creed. I want God of War 2.
I was going to say, I don't know if I'm skipping ahead of anything you wanted to say here, Chris, but I know that, well, we don't know anything about the game yet. It's all speculation. But I've heard the map could potentially be one of the biggest maps we've seen in any video game to date as well.
Yes. It's going to cover a lot of Europe, from what I've heard.
Not always a good thing, though.
Yeah. I've heard potentially the rumour was I think they're going to cover, obviously, Scandinavian areas, so Norway and such for your Norse mythology, but then also when it branches out, they're going to get down to the UK, France, and potentially Germany as well. I think Holland.
The IGN article says, as for the map, the leaked info says it comprises most of all of Northern Europe, including the cities York, London, Paris, and Kiev.
Hey, so we might see some Jorvik, we might see some Lindisfarne.
It'll be nice,
Northumberland area.
Assassin's Creed.
That's very true. I mean, you think Viking and Norse mythology, you very much think of Norway and those countries around there. But for those of you who aren't part of Europe, I think British UK history is very much shaped from not like you said, Norvik there, which is just York, isn't it? I believe,
Yeah.
Tom.
Yeah,
And we've all been to York. I presume you have, Dan, at one point.
Yeah, I've been in like just around the outside of it. So
Yeah, lovely city. But yeah, London, Paris, Kiev. So it's even branching as far out as Ukraine. So we're
It looks like it's
definitely
going to
exploring.
feature the North Sea, which I can see from my bedroom.
Well, the obviously the sailing element's going to come back because I think Black Flag introduced us to that at the start of last generation. I think it's a big element of what they focus on now because evidently their game, I think Skulls and Bones, is pretty much on the back burner. That's definitely not one of the 120 games coming to Stadia this year. I think
Was that the one where you just play as just the boat?
It's just Black Flag, but without just as you are the boat. You are the boat. So yeah,
filling all those wildest fantasies.
Everyone's fantasy. I'd like to do. But in and amongst all that, things like conquest battles and difficulty adjustments and stuff are going to come back as well. But if the last two are anything to go by, I absolutely adored Origins and Odyssey. So if you give me that with some Led Zeppelin music in the background and I'm a Viking, Norse god or something, I'll take that any day, absolutely any day of the week.
I think this is probably my biggest, like my favorite pairing of two different concepts here. I love the Assassin's Creed games. I absolutely fucking live for Norse mythology as well. Hell, to the point that I've even got the tattoo on my forearm right there. But this is brilliant. I want it.
Have you got a boat tattoo though, Tom?
No. Maybe we'll go for that next.
Yeah,
we'll see.
In there. So moving away from that, then we had a couple of trailers and teasers dropped this week as well. So we got a Doom Eternal trailer dropped.
Can I just say
yes.
that Doom Eternal trailer, that was literal video game pornography.
But that's the explicit rating.
It was absolute hype, wasn't it?
It was
awesome.
Good. Yeah,
and we saw the Stadia logo at the end of it, which for us that's even more hype because it exists. They're not gonna shun us again. So I think that it kind of tied in with some other things. We had was there a Baldur's Gate tease as well, Richie? I think you clocked that.
Yes, they just teased that something is coming towards the end of next month.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing another trailer drop or something with probably a date.
Yeah, and then we got an Elder Scrolls one as well, but that was without the Stadia logo.
Yeah.
It was, but it has had a lot of discussion from the official Stadia Twitter account as well in relation to it, saying we're really excited, can't wait for it to come to Stadia.
I think
From the official account.
So this one dropped at like 11 o'clock at night it was one of the busiest news days last week where things just kept coming. It's like, all right, done for the night. And then they say, oh, bloody hell, more stuff to watch and read.
It's like day one at E3.
Yeah, so head over to the relevant sites and check those videos out if you want to build up some hype for Stadia and some great games that hopefully we're going to get day and date as it stands. Some other stuff that dropped this week, not necessarily Stadia related, but I definitely wanted to bring it up, was PlayStation announced they were not going to E3 2020 this year, which obviously the face of E3 is changing year on year. It's going more consumer, but also the focus and the investment maybe isn't there already. Dan, I'd like to get your take on this actually. Do you think, in light of Sony not being there for a second year in a row, is this the chance Stadia, Google, get to put their money where their mouth is and rock up at the year's biggest gaming convention and shows some stuff what they've got in the pipeline?
So I think E3 has been slowly declining. I think it's becoming a little less relevant. That doesn't mean to say that it can't be relevant going forward, though. But I'm confident that Stadia are going to have presence at E3. And going back to for example, the Elder Scrolls that you just mentioned, I think they did actually share something somewhere saying that they'd got more to announce about the game at E3 for Stadia, and they actually quoted Stadia as well when they said that. So I think we're going to see a lot more. I think Stadia are starting to pay attention to what the community is saying. You know what I mean? The Game Awards was a big disappointment for the fact that we didn't see any Stadia presence there. We didn't even see a logo on any of the trailers.
Yeah.
The fact that when the Elder Scrolls trailer dropped, Stadia were there instantly posting that trailer on their Twitter. Whereas before it was kind of like a few hours, if not a day after.
It's kind of one of those read between the lines things. The interaction from Stadia's social team with certain developers and certain sites seems to be more highlighted with certain ones. Which, you've got to kind of think, I wonder what their working relationships are behind the scenes.
I think this is why on the blog roundup they kind of focus on, okay, we know you've been asking for games, we're tracking 120 games, they're coming.
I almost feel like there's been some sort of perhaps internal change at Google now since from what we saw last year coming into 2020. It's almost like perhaps they've had a restructure of some sort of management in relation to Stadia's communication internally, because since we've come out 2020, I mean, particularly this last week, it's just been rocking it. It's been brilliant compared to what we've seen before.
I think they probably were just sat there. They're new to this space, sat there just taking in feedback and then probably internally discussing, right, how do we enact this?
New Year's resolution.
Yeah, basically.
That's it. Be more involved with the
gamers
community.
can be quite vocal about what they want, and we're not the type of people to just kind of take things lying down and sit and be silent. So I think they've heard us loud and clear.
Yeah, we start podcasts to talk about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, specifically. So long may it continue, and hopefully, I think with the size of the audience growing, they're going to need to be more in touch with the community. Which hopefully this is a sign of good things to come. But yeah, my personal opinion is I think it's a great opportunity, even if they don't intend to stick with E3 in the long term. Which, as you said, Dan, it's in decline. So I can see it just becoming another convention, which is probably better for them financially as well. But in terms of while the opportunity is there, I think it would be an amazing opportunity for Google to just really put some reinvestment back into it for the base and 2020 launch, kind of align themselves in the public eye with these other big players. If you're going to have Xbox, Bethesda, Ubisoft all have conferences, Google taking a chunk of that stage time then just becomes part of the conscious conversation. IGN will be picking up. There'll be videos on YouTube of the their entire showcase. There'll be people on the floor. There's people tweeting about it. There's news articles coming out, and I think it's for the financial loss they take on being at E3, which apparently is one of the big reasons Sony have pulled out. I think the commercial value is probably worth it tenfold.
I think with Sony, what they seem to be doing is taking that money and then going on tour effectively. They said they're going to hit hundreds of smaller events.
Yeah, which
so if they
can
turn
do,
up in different places all over the country or countries with the PS5 so people can get their hands on, that's the one downside with E3. It's in the States, which makes it incredibly difficult for people like us to go.
I actually got an invite to E3 a few years ago when, like I said, I run an Xbox website before. But it's the cost of getting there, the cost of accommodation, food while you're there. It just becomes too much to bear.
Yeah.
Really. And I think what a lot of companies like Sony, Nintendo, they tend to do their own kind of conventions, like on a smaller scale. Obviously, you have like Nintendo Directs as well, which are just news feeds. But
when Nintendo started getting traction with the Directs, they pretty much abandoned E3 and just put a video up.
Yeah.
Well, that's all they need to do, don't they? Because Nintendo have a die-hard fan base. So no matter where they go in the world, people will always consume it, wherever it is.
I think Stadia need to be there because there's a lot of the main video game journalists a bit soured on Stadia at the moment. So getting these people hands-on with their stuff, and they're all going to be converging in one place, and they're going to be talking to each other as well.
The only thing with them getting out there in the public eye with things like this is you have to really plan what the response is going to be like from the audience as well. Because if we look at Blizzard and we look at Diablo Immortal and the mobile version of Diablo, for example, that absolutely dive bombed. And look what's happened to Blizzard as a result of it.
Yeah, that was a mistake. You don't put a mobile game as your one more thing when people are expecting Diablo 4.
That is true. But I think if there's anyone out there from Google listening, I think we would all champion Stadia at E3 if you had those invites and tickets. I don't know about you, Dan, but I'd quite happily share a plane journey with you over the pond. So we're available. We've got annual leave we can book in at work. Just let us know, and we'll be there to give you 100% coverage across the whole convention. Speaking of selling things like ourselves just then, we had a great deal drop for the UK in particular. Dan, you cover this, thankfully. We give you a bit of a tip-off around this article, but BT Broadband in the UK, British Telecom, they dropped a deal which came with a free gift with purchase, it's classed as, and it turns out it was the premiere edition of Google Stadia. So pretty much you sign up to the broadband package on super fast fiber 2 and above. If your household can cope with that speed down your line. And you got the white controller, you got 3 months of Stadia Pro with Destiny 2, and a Chromecast Ultra Stick, just as a free gift for sign up for broadband, which I think dropped on Friday. So that offer was live from the 17th of January all the way through till the end of the month, so the 31st. So if any listeners out there who've been tuning in and thinking about getting Stadia, but you've not wanted to commit the £120 odd, by all means, if your broadband's due, or even if you just hit your broadband provider, check out the BT website for that deal, because you're going to get a free Premier edition out of it.
Like me, for example, my broadband deal is up next month, and I hate my current provider. Unfortunately, I can't get above 50 megabits per second from BT where I live. So
you're in that catchment of you can't get the deal because your speed's not up to scratch.
So I can get over 500 with Virgin. It's just one of them annoying things. Cause if I could, I'd be going with BT for this deal.
I'm very lucky that my apartment at the moment has fiber to the premises. So there's two different types of implementation for fiber optic connections. Usually you get fiber to the cabinet, which is when you see the big green or grey boxes out on your streets, and then they run copper cabling to your house. So you get fiber optic connections to those cabinets. Then it runs the remaining data goes via copper cable to your house. They are starting to implement fiber to the premises, where the fiber cable goes directly to your door, to your building. A little bit pissed off for me, because I renewed my BT super fast fiber 2 account in December. So
same, exactly the same.
Oh, I feel like both of you should give them a call.
Yeah.
Did you get any free gifts with your upgrade?
I got my BT TV box, which I still have in its box in the cupboard, because I really have no use for it at all.
I just got quite a lot of money off. Like, I didn't have to pay anything for so long. I actually had a complaint at the time, because they said that I owed them like £90 for not paying a bill when I had paid it, and I'd even got like a receipt and everything to say that I'd paid it. So I rang them up and was like, look, I'm cancelling with you guys. Virgin have literally just installed fiber line direct to my house, and they're going to give me a better deal. And then they said, look, we'll give you X amount of money off, you know what I mean, if you stick with us. So
there you go, Tom.
I did.
Yeah.
I would probably ring them back up and say you'd like just curiously ask about why you haven't received your controller yet. And
just ring them up and tell them that you're going to leave. They tend to like bend over backwards to get you to stay. And
it's very true. It's very true.
It's a competitive market. And it's a necessity for anybody out there. But as we mentioned, any of our listeners who are curious about Stadia and just happen to be due a broadband upgrade or regrid, or just don't have broadband. I don't know why you wouldn't have broadband where you're living. But yeah, have a look over there. It's live to the end of the month, and it's a decent package deal, to be fair. It's better than getting vouchers for Amazon or something, which is usually the freebie, or a really small LG TV that you don't really have anything to do with.
I think this news is absolutely massive for the UK, because obviously BT is the biggest broadband provider in the UK. Mm-hmm. They also get a lot of screen time as well on TV. So if people didn't know what Stadia was, they're going to soon.
It's a decent market for Stadia, and I looked into it as well, and it's the first deal of its kind in Europe as well. So obviously,
I just wish they went with Virgin instead of BT.
Yeah, but it's always an optional choice wording with Virgin.
Yeah, it's fundamental for Google to get involved in that as well, because it's, as you said, Dan, as well. There's such a big part of national identity, I suppose, in a way as well, BT. So to get this out there and to be able to put it to TV, put it into adverts on the internet and so on for the British market, we could possibly see like a big influx of British users for Stadia.
Yeah, especially if people just go, I don't know what this is, put it on. Oh, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, and it works.
Yeah.
It ties nicely into the launch of Base, I think, as well. I think there's going to be a couple of promotions similar to this coming out across different tech companies and such. I can see in the UK, I think Game, and I think in the States they have like the likes of GameStop and stuff. They'll need deals like this to get that high street presence up there.
I don't know, because there's not really much physical to buy apart from the controllers, and they can just sell them themselves.
We had this conversation with Chase on Stadia Talk last night, and I don't know how well. I mean, I don't know if you read the news recently about Game shutting down quite a lot of stores.
Yeah.
One of the
like
stores
a restructure
near me,
around there.
Yeah, one of the stores near me is actually closing down. So I don't know how the advent of things like game streaming is going to affect the brick and mortar businesses such as game.
Yeah.
Are they going to want to play ball with the likes of Stadia, given that they're probably one of the reasons why they could decline in the future? Or are they going to forge new partnerships so that obviously Google won't want to see game decline? So they forged some sort of partnership to say, look, if you promote us, you know what I mean, we'll give you X amount of cash. And
we've seen
that way.
Yeah, we've seen quite a detailed push towards obviously home tech, and Google, Amazon. They all have their massive catalogs now of security cameras, house speakers, music players, doorbells, and such. And I think Stadia kind of falls under that umbrella of it's a bit of tech for your household.
I could almost see Google setting up like an Apple-style store, like physical presence, so you can go in. It's just Google products.
Yeah, I mean they've always followed Apple shadow and some kind of marketing choices, but I just think it's one of those things where maybe not GameSpot or Stop, but certainly I think the likes of supermarkets, Asda, Walgreens, whatever, what is it, Walmart in the States, on the end of like the places that would traditionally sell your televisions and Black Friday deals go crazy. These are the type of items you can have bookended at the end of your aisles that people see, read a little bit about, and it gets in their public consciousness. And I think that's what Stadia really needs to do this year.
Yeah, definitely.
I think going on to what Dan said earlier, though, I think game establishments like Game do have to look at sort of like modernizing themselves to how the technology is going to advance over the next few years. We've said before, we've had the conversations about it, but game streaming is going to be a fundamental change within the industry as a whole, and that is going to have a direct impact on their business model. So they've got to start looking at how do they sort of modernize their internal business structure, because it's inevitable. I'm saying it now and I'm going to stick to it because I do believe it genuinely is inevitable that this is going to happen.
I could see like a Curry's buying them out. They already bought like PC World and they're merged. It'd be, so you go to a Curry store and there's a section in the store which is game rather than having independent stores.
But do you want the experience within game to become Curry's? Like, do you want to walk in there and suddenly see like loads of
There isn't a game
equipment
in my hometown anyway.
Yeah,
that closed years ago.
I just feel like going to what you said before, Chris, about talking about like what we live in is like this Internet of Things where we've got smart devices, cameras, doorbells, assistants, and so on around the place. I don't know. Like I appreciate that's where we're going, but from a different perspective, and appreciate it's not gaming, but I don't want to see game stocking like a section for Google of smart equipment. Like it doesn't really tie into the name. It doesn't really fit it so much. So this is where I'm personally a little bit torn by it, because I don't usually go to Game to buy things anymore, because I feel like
you're part of the problem.
Yeah, their pricing structure to me sort of doesn't agree with where I purchase things from elsewhere. But I do feel like this, exactly as Dan said, it's going to have a massive impact to it, and we are going to see a change. Whatever that is, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't want Game to go, but
no,
I
don't
currently have to drive to a different town to go there.
I think part of it for me is I love just walking into a game, even if I have no intention of buying anything, but just to be surrounded by, you know what I mean, all of the merchandise and all of the games and people that have got a similar interest in you. Sometimes you can go in there and just have a conversation with someone you've never met before because, you know what I mean, they're in a certain part of the game store. And I think Google does need to have some sort of presence, even if it's just a corner where they have maybe a Stadia that you can kind of jump on and play for yourself, or whether it just sells the range of controllers. I think we're going to get a lot more merchandise in terms of things like the claw, the controllers, maybe custom headsets like for Stadia. So I think there's a market there for them.
Yeah,
what you've controllers.
Yeah, that presence is key, and what you've alluded to there, Dan. I've seen one of the Stadia stands as though what you would expect. So with the TV built in, Stadia branding all over the side. It was two Stadia controllers wired, two of the white ones, obviously had like for security reasons wired in. On the side they had leaflets about Stadia to go out, and there was two sets of headphones kind of hooked over like a bar underneath as well. So they exist, just where they're locating them, that's going to be the key. And I think within a game or a GameStop or a supermarket corner or something like that, would be enough just to drive that knowledge. Because I think if you ask the average person on the high street what is it at the moment, would they know? Not what they've ever heard of it. So it's in Google are the kings of marketing. I mean, half the revenue comes from ads. So they're not. It's not like they're a stranger to this kind of thing. So I think they really just need to put the money where the mouth is. Whether they use E3, high street presence, these kind of deals with BT. The
BT thing will help because that'll be on billboards. So people see it and go, "What's that?" I'll Google it. Oh, this is Google.
Yeah. It all ties in together. Like Tom said, with the Internet of Things, is all your products do cross pollinate. And that's the world we live in now.
Yeah.
Sweet. So just to wrap up on a few final two stories, really quick short one. There was a Taiwanese rating board pulled out BioShock collection for Nintendo Switch. Obviously not a Switch podcast. However, in light of 120 games apparently coming to Stadia this year, if there's a company working on a port, do we hope that there could be Stadia in the pipeline?
I wouldn't mind seeing the collector, like a collection edition.
You've not played them, have you, Tom?
I've not. No. It's a bit of my story of shame there. Really, no, I haven't played any of them.
So if it did come to Stadia, would you kindly play it?
I'd give it a shot.
Yeah, I thought you would.
Yeah. I think it'd be nice to have games that are like fully established already on the platform. You know what I mean? They're guaranteed to have a crowd of people download them.
Well, the one thing I've said before is that we, and this is no fault of Google because I appreciate what sells. I appreciate what sells. But my personal opinion is at the moment we're oversaturated with first-person shooters, and we need some other style titles. I know BioShock again is a first-person shooter / RPG. It's a story-driven RPG with which plays as a first-person shooter. But I do want some more story-driven games. I want some more like role-playing action games, adventure, platforming, things like that. That's what I want more of.
Give me some Lego games.
Yeah, I think we're quite saturated with open-world RPGs as well.
Yeah.
This is why when you mentioned like Assassin's Creed having potentially one of the biggest maps earlier, I kind of have an internal sigh. It's like, well, I'm good. It doesn't need to be that big.
Yeah. How many hours of my life do I have to spend traversing a fictional terrain?
It's to the point where we're becoming more familiar with virtual landscapes than we are our actual own landscapes. I know more about Grand Theft Auto's map than I do England.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I can find my way anywhere around Vice City still 15 years.
Sometimes it's nice to have a very story-driven linear experience that's going to take you 30 hours to get through and not like 150 Persona.
I see future geography lessons at school teaching you all about the GTA maps, teaching you how to traverse Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the old Greek kingdoms.
It's a potential reality.
I think if you modes in the Assassin's Creed Odyssey, isn't it?
Yeah, Origins had it as well, where you could explore it all without being attacked by enemies. I think in terms of virtual landscape, as much as we joke, Fortnite did it this December with Star Wars. They had an exclusive trailer screened within the game, where thousands upon thousands of players gathered to watch the trailer within the game. So maybe that's the future for GameStop and GameSpot. They exist within a virtual world. You can go on and browse, buy your games in their physical shop within the game, and it's digitally on your storefront collection, ready to play once you're back out of it. Who knows?
Virtual reality.
It's just
they could always start selling download codes.
They could. It's Inception. I'm telling you.
We are going to be living Ready Player One soon enough.
Yeah. It's on the horizon. And then I think finally a big important thing. Gearbox and Bungie are raising money for the Australian bushfire relief, which thankfully they've had rain this week. Mm-hmm. So great news for all the firefighters and the poor animals out there affected by this. But they've been donating some money. Obviously, I've personally given some money across as my partner. But I think it's really important that if anyone's listening, if you've got a spare couple of quid, so if you know what, forget Patreon and stuff like that, send it that way because they clearly need any help they can get a little bit more. And it's
I've seen some videos and it's terrifying. It's a huge part of the country is literally on fire.
Yeah, and obviously we all live in a world where we play these fictional worlds where anything can happen and you can just delete, go back to your save point. Unfortunately, there's a lot of lives that are affected, I think, by that unfortunately don't have a checkpoint they can go back to. So Google search out any kind of relief fund, whether it's for animals or people or victims and stuff like that, because it's all going towards a good cause. So it's
It's and we'll also share these on the Twitter account immediately after the podcast as well to make sure you do know where to go to check these out.
Yeah, we'll get them all up and clear and shared. But that does actually bring us to the end of our very special episode. So we are once again, as per tradition, well over the clock in terms of our timelines. So we did pre-warn Dan that we might need him for a little bit longer before we started. So yeah, we're coming in at about 1:20 at the moment. So thanks for listening for this long if you've stuck with us.
Blame Google.
Blame Google. Yeah, exactly. It's their fault for bringing us news and games and stories that we cherish and want to talk about. But I think other than that, if you've not got anything else to add, gentlemen.
Not at all.
Oh, good.
No.
So as per usual, if you could follow us over on YouTube, we're going to be adding some more content imminently up on that channel. And if you give us a follow, you'll obviously get the notifications so you're kept in the loop. Most of our news does drop on Twitter, where we kind of direct you towards relevant podcasts if you don't already. We are on the cusp of that magic 100 again. I know you celebrated it a few weeks back, Dan, so we're short on your coattails there. We'll just behind you. And obviously for you, Dan, if you need any information or Stadia news in the moment, follow Dan over on StadiaSource. I believe you've got everything: YouTube, Twitter, the website itself. Yeah. Anything else you want to add on that?
No, I mean, like you said, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Just search for StadiaSource. You can go to StadiaSource.com, and all of the links are in the footer as well. So.
Exactly, and it follows up. So that's been everything for episode 17 of the Sounds of Stadia podcast. Thank you very much for listening. Have a good week. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.